This is the Sales Training and Coaching Podcast, where we feature trainers, coaches, and sales leaders talking shop about what works and what's coming next in the world of sales training and coaching. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Jeremy Shear, and my guest is Brad Albright, founder of Vitality Teaming. Brad, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Jeremy. Happy to be here.
So let's start by having you tell us a bit about yourself and about your company.
Well, let me start with the company. I feel more comfortable about that than myself, perhaps. But we founded Vitality Teaming about a year or so ago as an offshoot of some of our core activities in developing what we describe as being purposeful games. And purposeful games, especially for learning and development, whereby by creating fun, team-oriented experiences, we can heighten engagement and the efficacy of the learning experience. And the games are designed in a fashion whereby they can be applied so as to really emphasize whatever themes are part of a program or agenda that the proctor administrator is working with. So with that background, and we've now in total over the last 3 years worked with hundreds of work and school groups, half the Fortune 500, many leading universities, and so forth. We founded Vitality Teaming to put a special emphasis on learning and development.
So Vitality Teaming specializes in these games, what you call catalytic training games, right? And in a recent article, you describe these kind of games as a key to fixing what's wrong with the typical onboarding program. So first, before we get into catalytic games and sort of what they are, what is the problem with the typical onboarding program in your view? What's wrong? What needs to be fixed?
Well, I think it's a matter of how to achieve heightened engagement, enthusiastic participation, as opposed to what oftentimes can be dry subject matter. So, the onboarding time is critical in terms of instilling an enthusiasm and familiarity with company culture, associations with new colleagues, and the goals of any onboarding system.
Yeah, and I mean, onboarding is pretty important, right? It's people's first experience with a company, and if it's really boring and unengaging, that's, you don't want to get off on that foot. I mean, I've definitely been there. I've had an onboarding experience that was just kind of deadly with PowerPoints and, hours of just kind of going over policies and procedures. And it was super boring, I got to say.
It can be those programs for sure, going back to my description as being dry subject matter. But I think, that same subject matter can be conveyed in a much more compelling fashion to the extent that it's grounded in a fun activity that really facilitates the process of people becoming comfortable and familiar with the environment that they're joining, the people with whom they're joining that environment. And those are the benefits that we've seen achieved by the use of our games.
Okay, so let's talk about those games, catalytic training games. First of all, what is that? What does a catalytic training game look like? What's a good example?
Okay, well, first of all, that's a term that we've taken some liberty with, and it's really based on feedback that we've gotten from our clients, where very consistently we're told that by incorporating the games that we develop into the programs that they've been running for years, they saw a significant enhancement in the value of the overall experience for participants, as well as for the trainers or the instructors. We often hear it catalyzed the program that we developed. So hearing that enough times, we thought, okay, that's an interesting description of the benefits that are achieved. And we've, as I said, taken some liberties with that term in trying to highlight what the ultimate benefit is of game participation here using the solutions that we offer. But to get to your question, gamification is a hot topic, and a lot of people talk about gamification. But most folks, when they consider that term, are thinking purely in the digital realm, computer simulations, and so forth. When we founded our initial business several years ago, based on a very strong belief that collaborative, hands-on problem solving has great value, great benefit. Especially in light of the realities that we all face right now, where we're so consumed by technology, perhaps slaves to it, that we all really relish the time that we can just work with other people, communicate directly, and have fun with them. And accordingly, all of our games have a very significant tactile or hands-on emphasis associated with those. So the objectives that we have for all of our games, and they're developed based on an architecture that we created from the outset that involved professional game designers and fabricators, but also sociologists and team building experts, so as to get to that level of purpose that was our goal. Maybe if I could just step back a second to your initial question, Jeremy, for a second, in inspiration. The business that we started was in large part inspired by things that I had done in my past. I was in the Army for a while. I went through officers training. During officers training, the principles of good teamwork and leadership were really conveyed and instilled in us by virtue of team activities. They tended to be a little bit more physical. In some cases, we went through what were called leadership reaction courses, which had an obstacle course element to them. But the notion was as simple as a small group of people with a common goal and the constraints of time and resource can really bring to light some very powerful learning experiences. With that, in addition to some terrific instruction or training that I got in programs at the firm I ultimately joined, JP Morgan. I spent many years there. I had the basis for inspiration for starting the business. What we took into consideration with respect to developing the architecture that I alluded to was we wanted to create a game flow and a game content where everybody had the chance to participate, everybody had a chance to relate, and there was a diversity of activities associated with the challenge or the game, such that there was an opportunity for previously unknown skills and maybe even perhaps limitations to come to light among team members that could be taken into consideration for future perspective. It's not at all uncommon for us to hear people remark afterward, I didn't know that this person had those skills. That's terrific to know. And that's one of the byproducts of the architecture that we created, the game experience that we afford.
Very interesting. So describe one of these games, or just pick any example. What does a typical game actually look like? Like, what are people doing?
I'll talk about our portable game system because I think that's most relevant here. We have some venues in New York and London where customers come visit those venues. But the portable game system gives us the flexibility to really afford the experience to anybody in any part of the world. And we ship these to Europe and Australia as well as the Middle East at this point. The portable game can take a few different forms, but the one that is most mature, the one that's been used most, is referred to as a case game. It is presented in an industrial container the size of a medium suitcase, and it has all the tactile elements of the game inside that case. There is also a digital application that it plays a supporting role in providing content, in allowing for interface to input answers, to uncover clues, get hints, and so on. And also the countdown timer resides within that application environment. So with that application environment and everything that comes with it in terms of instruction and storyline and so forth, people can go about tackling the challenge of piecing together all the puzzles within the container or the case so as to achieve the ultimate goal. And the goals really vary depending on the game. As an example, we have a James Bond style mission, team mission, where an evil plan has to be thwarted, and it requires collaboration on the part of all the participants who are told that they have been recruited specifically to assist a field agent in figuring out how to foil the plot. There's another game that we have that is based on Greek mythology. At its core, it is a game to emphasize an efficient sales process. It is not intended as a sales game. We like to have our games be abstractions from core concepts so as to make them that much more approachable and fun, and really take some of the stress level that people might otherwise feel that they're being tested off the table, and let them really enjoy the experience and underscore the fact that this is a game as opposed to a test.
Yeah. Okay. So that sounds like a lot of fun.